What I'm going to do today is sort of walk you through the 5 layers of what yoga describes as our koshas, our layers. And then we're going to drop into a meditation so that you can have a visceral experience of what each of those layers feels like in your body. And then I'll bring you up to journal. So what we're going to want for this hour is to be in a place where you feel like you can be really present. Be in a place where you feel like you can meditate, like close your eyes and sit tall in a chair. That's probably how I'll be doing it. And then have the kind of reflection where you can come up and journal afterwards. My name is Jill Novak. I know a few of you. When I scanned the list of the people coming here today, it was about 50-50. I work in Cochrane. My job is all around helping people integrate these 5 layers in their health. There's something that yoga really believes in that we can practice trying to heal our physical layer over and over and over and over and over again. And we have so many amazing modalities really to help us with our physical layer. And then we kind of get lost. So as soon as we start bumping up against, sometimes it can just be chronic pain. Sometimes it can be autoimmune issues where it feels like there aren't a lot of solutions on the physical layer to help us heal. This is where it becomes really important to drop into something a little bit deeper. I'm aligned with Synergy Collaborative Health here in Cochrane, where I will teach yoga therapy. And my big offering is a year-long course. It's a year-long course in habit evolution. It's really lifestyle medicine. It's taking your daily routines really, really, really seriously. And in starting to shift and change those daily routines, we're shifting and changing your mindset. We're shifting and changing your thoughts. We're shifting and changing core beliefs. We're shifting and changing definitely patterns that are running. And it's almost like what we're doing is we're taking the old operating system and we're upgrading it with a new operating system. And when we do this, we do it in such a way that we purposefully acknowledge that not everything is caused by the physical layer. We know that if we're in a car accident, the injury that is in our physical body is caused by a physical thing. We don't know that all the time. For most disease, we don't know that it was caused by some physical thing happening. And so when we start to look deeper and allow ourselves to really feel into these other layers of the being, then it starts to make more sense for us. So that's what I want to walk us through today and help you experience in your own body. It's really important to me. This is a really big part of my process, is to always be getting you to meditate, always getting you to this practice of tuning inward. The more we set, we make it a life practice to set time aside every day to tune inward. In my groups, I just say, ask yourself over and over again every day, what do I need right now? And figure out what the answer is to that question on a really small level. Sometimes it's like, I need to put on a pair of socks, my feet are cold. I need a glass of water. I need to go pee. I need to get outside and turn off my computer for 10 minutes. They can be really easy solutions that we often push aside. And yet it's in these small steps where so much of our awareness is heightened and the healing happens. So yay, Janine found us. So what I want to do today then is I want to lead you through these 5 layers of the body and talk about them briefly, keep going. I want you to know that below is a chat box. So if you type any questions in the chat box, I will get them. And that way you won't have to worry about being recorded and all of that kind of stuff. The recording for today's call will be sent out to the people who signed up for the call. Yeah. So welcome. Let's get started. If you have the copy of your the workbook, then you'll have the pages in front of you. And if not, I'm going to do my best to sort of outline it as best I can so that you can visualize it. Really what we're thinking about when we think about the 5 layers of the body, I want to start with the outermost layer, your physical body. This is, you know, what we're always taking care of. It's the muscles, it's the bones, it's the skin. It's every part of us that you can see and touch. It's very tactile. And when this layer feels like it is not in balance, this is where you start to get physical symptoms. This layer is the cumulative layer of all 5 layers that are in our body. And when we get physical symptoms, we don't know if it's coming from any one of the previous 4 layers, or if it's coming from a physical cause is creating the physical dis-ease in our body. But we experience this one the most. This one is where our aches and pains are. This one is where it's our aches and pains. It's our stiffness and tightness. It's when you get out of bed in the morning, you put your feet on the ground and it takes you a second some days. You know, some days are worse than others. Some days that you swing your legs out of the bed and it takes you a minute to just sort of find your balance on your legs or feel like the legs are ready to hold you for the day. This is where a lot of our chronic pain can come in. This is where we find, I don't know, it can be everything from just like acne, eczema, hair falling out, your eyes being itchy and dry, your digestive system not working properly. It's all of these symptoms. They show up in our physical layer. Now, that's great because we listen to our physical layer. We actually usually pay attention to it. What we don't know is where that illness was caused from. So we want to be able to sort of check in on the cause of that illness and be able to see where it came from. I don't know if we're ever going to get really good at that, if we're ever going to get really good at actually being able to check in at where the cause of illness came from, but the awareness that it may have come from a deeper layer is a really important one. So the next layer that we can drop down into on your sheet, it's called the intellectual layer. I want to give it another name. I want you to think of it as mental emotional. So this is the layer of your thoughts, and this is the layer of your feelings. Now, these two speak to us a lot. I find that they're not always in unison with each other. Many times your thoughts are kind of alarmist. They're like, oh, what about this? What about this? They get a bit worried about things. They get a bit obsessed about things. This is where the hypochondriac in me comes out. That's always like role playing what's probably happening behind the scenes. And our thoughts run on a pattern. Our thoughts run on core beliefs, things that we think are true based on our past experiences and what we were taught, how we were raised, how we were nurtured. So whatever core belief is running in our background has a lot to do with what thoughts are running in our head. The other piece of this is the emotions in our body. Whatever emotion is coming up, we really have never been taught how to process those emotions. If any of you have ever seen that movie Inside Out, that movie was all about, little Disney Pixar movie, all about a little girl who only wanted to feel joy. And whenever she felt anger, sadness, or fear, it was like, no, that's not appropriate. Those aren't appropriate emotions. We have to push them aside and we have to be fine. We have to be joyful. We have to be good. And that's not the way our emotions work either. They're present in us in order to be acknowledged. And often that's all they need is for us to just take some time and be like, yeah, that's sadness. Wow, that's big. And to be present to that emotion, it's almost something we need to learn how to do. It's something that it feels like we've never been given permission to be present to those emotions. And we've never been given a way to properly be present to them, allow them to process through our bodies. So this would be called your Vijnana Maya Kosha. Oh no, I'm wrong about that. That's your monomaya kosha. That's your mental emotional being. So I've given you the wrong, I'm going down this page wrong already. I missed the breath body. So that would be our second one. The pranamaya kosha is where our breath comes into our physical body and invigorates it, enlivens it. It is what brings sort of the meat and bones of us alive. When we practice yoga, we practice all the time returning to the breath, returning to the inhale and the exhale over and over again, because it's the one thing that's in the present moment. When the thoughts start to take us into the past and make us worry about what we said or did in the past, or take us into the future and get us worrying about what may happen in the future, our prana is what brings us back to the present. Our pranamaya kosha is what it keeps us noticing the inhale, the exhale, always in this present moment, always right now. Not only does this layer sort of serve to pump the energy into our circulatory system, pump it into our nervous system, pump it into our reproductive system, pump it into our digestive system. It is this pranamaya kosha that keeps all the systems of our body working, alive, functioning. And so this pranamaya kosha, it's really important that it be broad, it be big, expanded, it be smooth. It sort of be, there's this real rhythm to it. We want it to be a big inhale and a big exhale. What life does to us though, is that sort of life events come and we find ourselves going, and it could be something as easy as a stoplight, something as easy as you notice that you've got to slam on your brakes a little bit quick and it all of a sudden stops our breath. Whenever we stop our pranamaya kosha, whenever we, have that tightness happen in us, the systems of our body, the rhythm of how they're working underneath don't work as well anymore, because all of a sudden the rhythm of that system gets interrupted by that kind of jolt of our breath being held. If you think about pain in your body, so many times when we have pain in our body, our breath will be tight, our breath will be restricted, our breath will be held. And so there's this practice that it's almost like we learn how to do it, we curate it, we cultivate it, of coming back to allow the breath to do its job, to be big and unrestricted and bold in our bodies, and just be able to move into all the nooks and crannies and offer support, replenishment, relief, rebuilding into all those corners. That's our second layer. So then the third layer is that monomaya kosha. That's our mental emotional layer. And that's the one that, we're pretty checked in with it when it comes to our thoughts, because they're always swirling. We can feel our emotions. We don't often know what to do with that. We often will be let the thoughts lead the way. And that's how we can spin into anxiety when we're building stories around things. We're inventing details that don't quite exist yet, but we're talking about them as if that's an inevitable way, that the story's going to go. And it's important, yoga really talks about it being important that we recognize that this layer of our body is just sort of one voice, one vote for decision making in us. So often we will let this layer be the decision maker. And whether you're sort of guided by always defaulting to your emotions and your emotions making all your decisions, or if you're guided by your thoughts and your thoughts make all your decisions, sometimes that's like a personality thing. We find there's like the type A personality that's always following their thoughts, and they're very systematically, logically, rationally making all their decisions. And then we find the emotional person that's just like, spur of the moment, by their heart, making all their decisions. Yoga doesn't want us to use either one of them exclusively. Definitely, we want their input. We want that layer of our body to have something to share with us. We want to be able to consider And yet we want to go a little bit deeper because there's some more layers here that can come in to inform us about our health. Now let's drop to that Vijnana Maya Kosha, that intellectual body. So intellectual, I always think that's the mental emotional one. The way yoga uses this word is it actually is the intuition. It's the wisdom that's in you that you've never been taught. It's the piece of you that knows what the answer is, even though you have no idea why you know that that's the right answer. It's the part of you that instinctively knows that you like that person and you don't like that person, that you trust that person, you don't trust that person. It's the part of you that knows that you should eat this and not that. We don't always listen to this, and we definitely don't live in a society that's taught us to honor or trust our intuition. We very much live in a society that thinks that they can fool us into believing that we need to buy our health and buy our happiness, and that we're never whole or complete or enough until we buy that product. Like that's the kind of brainwashing that we've been experiencing since our birth, through the marketing that we've received and the messaging that we've received our whole lives. And yet, when we can start to trust this intuitive layer, you really start to find that you don't need like that, that thing that you're being convinced to buy on Facebook Marketplace, or that ad that you're like, oh, I just really need to buy that thing. You find that you don't need it because your intuitive body knows what you need. And your intuitive body always has your best interests at heart. You usually don't need to buy anything. That's the crazy thing. Now, the problem is, the hardest part of this one for me is that you have to trust it. You have to trust your intuitive body. And often, especially if you're the logical, rational, data-based, decision maker, the intuition doesn't necessarily line up easily with that. So you might have your mind telling you one thing and your intuition is telling you other thing. Your emotions might be kind of a mess over here and you're not even sure if you can place it. But each one of them is trying to tell you something. I love how the definition of yoga is union. When the mind and the body and the spirit and the breath and the intuition sort of can come together, and they can sit around and make a decision in unison, and they can all agree on something, that congruence is health. They say that that's when health happens. So often we'll be the kind of people who, when somebody asks us how we are, we'll be like, I'm great, I'm fine. Meanwhile, there's some part of your body that's screaming in pain, in chronic illness, saying, I'm not fine. And yet we're trying to be upbeat, we're trying to be happy, we're trying to be joyful. And so the words that we say are incongruent with what our body's experiencing. Your intuition really is the one place. And when we can learn how to go inward and listen to it, and not only listen, but then respond, be able to respond to that, be able to understand what it is that it's asking you, and learn and move from that. It's a divine thing that begins to happen in us. We trust ourselves. Maybe it's the kind of thing where we start saying no to things in the outside world that we need to say no to. That shakes up our relationships a bit. Might be the kind of thing where there's a job change coming, or there's a big conversation in a relationship that needs to happen. And those are things we tend to avoid. And yet when we do them, you know that this, because when you follow your intuition, and when you do what it wants you to do, as soon as you do it, however hard you resisted it, and however hard you were like, oh, this is going to feel awful, I don't want to do this, I don't want to do this, I don't want to do it. The second you do it, your whole body goes, and your breath body is just like, thank you. All that tightness in your physical body, all the other layers just go, thank you. Because you listened to your intuition, and you can feel it. You can feel the immediate relief of facing something that felt really hard, but your intuition told you that you needed to do it. So the last layer is the bliss layer. And I don't even know, this one feels really hard for me to explain because yoga calls it samadhi, and we have visions that this is like the yogi that's just like meditating on the top of a mountain who has no worldly possessions and yet is perfectly happy. And for me, samadhi, or this bliss body, this ananda maya kosha, is around connection. It's when I feel most connected to myself. It's when I feel like, oh, I'm seated in comfortably in myself. I'm not agitated in my own skin. I feel good here in my body. I feel connected to me. And then I feel connected to my world, my people in my world, the people I love. And I feel connected to my community. And I feel connected to the universe. And that sense of connection sort of makes me feel like the string of these 5 koshas is complete. I feel like then it's like my physical body is connected to my breath body, is connected to my mental emotional, is connected to my intuitive, and now is connected to bliss. So if you have the worksheets, I'm flipping over that first page. What I want you to start to notice in yourself is when these things, each layer is in balance or not in balance. Physical body, we've already said when it's not in balance, it's fatigue, it's pain, it's achiness, it's discomfort, it's stiffness, it's tightness, it's limited range of motion. It's, that day that you wake up and you can't like turn your head because your neck's kind of cricked. It's that day. Like your physical body is telling you something. When our physical body is happy, it feels robust. It feels energized. It feels there's a lightness, there's a strength, a flexibility, there's an ability to balance. That's what that feels like. Hearty. It feels hearty. And at the same time, it feels like easeful. When the breath body is limited, it does feel like breath is tight, restricted. It's so interesting that COVID was a respiratory disease. It's so interesting that our whole world experienced this chronic tightness through this COVID. Tightness is sometimes it's like stagnant breath. I don't even know how to say stagnant breath. It just feels pooled. It feels motionless. Whereas breath should feel like this rhythm, this flow, this in and out. When that in and out doesn't feel present, when it just kind of feels like this, stuck, and it feels like whatever breath is happening is just sort of happening within this box, and the whole body doesn't get to expand and receive the breath. Sometimes it'll feel like the rib cage is really tight. The breath is happening just inside this rib cage, but there's not a lot of movement there. Often I will feel it's incomplete. If anyone's ever had asthma, you know the feeling of an incomplete breath. Like, it's like, oh, I got an inhale, but it wasn't enough. It didn't feel like it filled me. It only went halfway in. Like it's, your body wanted it to be a bigger breath, but it felt limited. It felt restricted. When prana layer is in health, it feels abundant. It feels like your breath is full and complete. It feels like your breath is deep, powerful, penetrating into your body. It feels like it's nourishing you. It feels like it's sort of this, it's holding you, it's supporting you. It's got a capability, a capacity to it. I wrote the word satiating. Yeah, it's satiating, like a really good meal. That breath just feels the air and ether are too mobile. There's a lot of thoughts. They're kind of spinning. Wave at me when my internet comes back. Is it better? Okay, good. Fear. anxiety, guilt, harboring anger, hatred, sadness, shame, depression, like all of these emotions that we do not know how to handle, that we do not know what to do with those emotions, and they just cause us agitation. They just cause us to sort of stir, and it gets really soupy and messy. Those are ones that we want to worry about. Those are ones where it's like, I just need to learn how to spend time there. I need to learn how to process those ones. I need to learn how to help them move through my body. Any emotion or any thought that gets on repetition and gets stuck, that's the one we want to worry about. We want to worry about the ones that feel like they're stuck in you, because all of these things should process. They're like the weather. Yesterday it rained, today it's just cloudy, but the rain passed through. We want those emotions to be able to pass through us, inform us as they pass through, and we want to be able to do what we need to do. Just like when it hails, you bring your plants in from outside, and when it's a really dry day, you water your plants. We want to be able to respond appropriately to that emotion, but we don't want it to hunker down and just like stir in us for a long, long time. If that's happening, we know that layer is experiencing dis-ease. And that might be the germination, the beginning of whatever physically is happening with us. When we go down to our, let's talk about what the emotion, what that Manomaya kosha is when we are in balance. Oh, for me, this is clarity and focus. I feel like motivated. I'm clear about what I want to do. I'm focused with my energy. I don't have any ADHD that day. I just feel like I can get work done. I can be present to the people in my life. My energy feels very even. My mood feels very even. My emotions feel very even. I have access to joy. I have access to happiness. I have access to compassion and love. If you feel like you don't have access to compassion and love and peace and calm, that's a kind of a little alarm bell too. We want to have access to those. Okay, Vijnanamaya kosha. Let's go to the intuitive layer. When this layer is blocked, and again, COVID taught me so much about this layer. We are polarizing. Holy man, don't you think our whole world feels very polarized right now? Maybe we're all full of a little bit of gunk. All of our layers are a little bit gunked up. The word in that in Ayurveda is ama. So we use the word toxins in like holistic health. In Ayurveda, you use the word ama, and it just is the word gunk. It's like metabolic waste. It's stuff your body doesn't know how to digest. It's stuff that's clogging you. And on the intuitive layer, when your intuitive layer is clogged, we can have polarized thinking. Everything's black or white. There's no in between. We're really hard at the and or, and, this is true and that's true too. We're like, nope, one or the other. We can catastrophize, like we worst case scenario everything. We're always playing a story in our head, and we're adding stories, we're adding details, and we're really catastrophizing. We're not in our intuition anymore. We're just making up worst case scenarios. We get really overgeneralized about things. We jump to conclusions really fast. We're not thoughtful. We're not connected to that piece of us that has our best interests in mind, and we're not connected to that bigger sense of safety and peace there. When that intuitive body is functioning, and when we're listening to it, to me, it sounds, it's like, I can read between the lines there. I know what they're trying to say. I can see both sides of a story. Some of you who know me well know that I have two sisters, and one of them is an anti-vax, has not vaccinated, is very against it. And the other one was very COVID scared, probably triple vaccinated her whole family. And I just felt like there's pieces of each of their beliefs that I understand. And I like that. I like to be able to know that I can understand what led them to that belief system. because to me, that helps me know that I'm in line. I'm in line with my intuitive body when I can see both sides of a story. I can still have my own beliefs about that, but I can understand how their belief led them to where they are. I can feel compassion and empathy for other people. I can understand, or I can at least give myself the opportunity to try and understand their point of view. And I think it gives me the opportunity to know whether or not when I learn or hear a new piece of information, I'm willing to shift my own beliefs. This willingness to sort of always be open to learn a new piece of information and grow from it, and learn a new piece of information and grow for it. It just means that we're not stuck in an old core belief. It means that our patterns are allowed to evolve. When you find yourself in a place where it's like, nope, hard, fast, this is my belief system, and you won't let that change, sort of like the tightness, the way you hold that too tight, stops you from feeling that expansion contraction. Yeah, so perhaps what's going on in the breath body with the lack of expansion, or what's going on in the physical body with aches and pains, comes right from that intuitive body. Like, you've got me kind of trapped in here, and you're not letting the intuitive body come up and be an information source for your decision making. Bliss body is just, do you feel connected? Do you feel connected to yourself, to the divine, to God, to whatever your word for God might be? The other day, I received a postcard from a girlfriend who's hiking the Pacific Crest Trail. She'll be gone for 6 months. And somewhere along the line, she sent me a postcard from one of her little outposts. And I can hear in the way that she's written it, how connected she is. She's just been away from all the distractions, every day hauling on her backpack and hiking over and over and over again. And it feels like the longer she's gone, the more connected she is to herself and to divine and to her bigger purpose, her bigger life story. And it was crazy to read her postcard, because in it, I recognized her connection. And although I would pretty much consider, I would almost always say I feel pretty connected. But in it, I could recognize the different levels. Like, her level of connection right now is so much deeper than my own. I'm feeling right now, I'm like, oh, there's a bit of distraction going on. There's a bit of dissociation going on. There's a little bit of like, I'm up here in the material world, and there's a place for me to come back into that deeper connection. There's always a place for improvement. So what I want to do now is lead you through a meditation. If any of you have questions about any of that before I go into the meditation, just throw them in the chat. You're all good, Miss Kathy. That's perfect. All right. I want to lead the meditation. When you come up, I want you to have a pen and paper ready to journal. Because what comes out of you is never something that I can predict. The way I teach my course is not instructive. I don't give you rules. I just give you the Ayurvedic concept. And then we tune inward and we do a meditation. And I ask you what your role is. So if we're studying, I'm going to bed earlier, and that's sort of the habit we're on. I don't say, oh, the rule is we have to go to bed by 10. You have to go to bed by 9:30. This is your bedtime routine, and this is the 10 o'clock. No, you know your body. We will always do a meditation. We'll lead you into you, and your body will make the decisions about what's needed and where you're at and how you're feeling. So as I lead you into this meditation, all I want you to do is leave space to notice. Sometimes it's words that come into your head, or you'll just get like a word that resonates, or you'll get like a sensation in your body, or you'll get, our meditations speak to us in different languages. So for me, it's quite literal. I often hear words. Some people get feelings. They get sensations. Yeah. So notice that. To begin to meditate, I'm in a hard back chair, so I'm just going to let my sit bones rest. If you're on a couch or something, you might let yourself sit back and relax. In my hard back chair, my feet are on the floor and my sit bones are connected. Let your eyes close if it feels safe and comfortable to do so. Start to feel the distance between your sit bones connected to the chair and the crown of your head drawn to the sky. Notice the physical body, and there any places where there's a presence of aches or pains, or how things are generally feeling today. So let yourself scan through the physical body, starting at the top of your head, going into your face, your neck, shoulders. Maybe you're going to move down your back, your spine. Go down the front side of your body, the chest, the ribs, the belly. Feel your arms, your hips, your thighs, knees, calves, ankles, feet. What's speaking to you today? What has a little message for you? And then start to breathe. Start to breathe in and out through your nose if it's possible. And if you could feel the breath moving into your body, the way sort of a fog moves into a field, feel that breath permeating into your body. Sometimes you can feel where the breath kind of feels a bit blocked, like it's not allowed in one corner, or there's a tightness or a stiffness, a blockage somewhere where it's like the breath can't enter. Notice places where the breath feels like it can move unrestricted. It can flow into, that fog can permeate into that area with ease. And notice anywhere where it feels like that breath can't enter. It's almost like there's a block there. Just get curious about that. Imagine that your warm breath just had the capacity to, it's like it dissolves, it dissipates, it's like dissolves. It's like, when you put a bath bomb into your bathtub, the water just gets in there and eventually melts away that hard block into nothing. Just imagine that the breath had that capacity with it. Wherever in your body you can feel that blockage happening, the inability for the air to get in, and just continue as you breathe to let that air move in. How does the breath feel? Does it feel like it is complete? Does it feel like it's full? Does it feel like it's capable of permeating into all the nooks and crannies of your body? Is it the physical body sort of not letting it in, or does it feel like the breath's not strong enough or big enough to actually move in and get past the muscles and the bones and the tissue of the body? Let your breath get a little bit deeper, a little bit stronger, and notice if you can take yourself to a deeper breath, a stronger breath. I want you to check in with your emotions. Do you feel like your day gets filled with stress or negative emotions? Where do they sit right now? If you were to let yourself sit quietly down beside your heart and just wait, what emotion wants to be acknowledged? Still on the Mana Maya Kosha, let's check in with our thoughts. I mean, this one's a Pandora's box. It says the reason so many people tell me they can't meditate is that their thoughts are never quiet. So what are they today? Yoga says you are not your thoughts. So just imagine that your thoughts are one thing and you just get to sit there and watch them. Like they're playing on a movie screen in front of you and you're just sitting in the seats eating popcorn. What's going on that movie screen? What thoughts are screeching by? What thoughts are pondering? What thoughts are playing on repeat? What's going on the movie screen of your thoughts? If you could just step back. They always say, be a witness, be the witness. This is us being a witness to our own body, our own being, our own self. What mental patterns are playing in your life? Maybe just in your day. Maybe in your life is too big of a question. And then just take a deep breath, acknowledging what was there, moving to that next layer, that intuitive layer. Do you feel like that lens between you and your intuition is gunked up, full of ama? Do you feel like you are kind of gotten pretty black and white over these last couple of years? Locked in one way of thinking? Or not? When you go to speak to your intuition, how does it speak to you? How do you hear it? How do you respond? And that bliss layer, that kind of elusive, very subtle. Do you notice that we've moved from the most obvious layer down to this most subtle layer? The bliss layer. What's your connection to your divine? Sometimes this is just the word universe. Sometimes this is the word God. Mother Earth, inner wisdom. It's that all-knowing presence. It's that connection of all these layers to self. What is your connection to divine, to your divine self? And just breathe. And I want you to notice the string that connects all these layers. The physical connected to the breath connected to the mind and emotions, even more subtle connected to intuition, and finally connected down into that bliss body. Notice that however subtle, the strength and wisdom of every layer makes up your wholeness, your completeness. And however subtle each layer has wisdom to offer you and how you navigate through life. So let yourself have another deep breath. And then when you open your eyes, just take pen to paper and start either answering the questions that you've written out or just start writing. Physical body, this is what it said to me. Breath body. I'm going to set my little stopwatch here to give you 5 minutes to write. I feel like I should be playing like soft, soothing music for you. You're noting physical layer, you're noting breath layer, mental emotional layer, intuitive layer, and bliss layer. There aren't right or wrong answers here. There's just the way your body's asking you to listen. Maybe even the question to ask is, what do I need right now? Based on what you just did, the conversation you just had with those layers of your being. See what it says it needs right now. Another 30 seconds. So So there's some very practical things that we do in order to ensure that we are continually checking in with these other layers of our being. One of them is just this, it's this drop in. It's this drop in and check in. And that's why the practice of yoga can be so good. Because every time you go to a yoga class or every time you practice yoga, even if you're not practicing asana, because asana is just the movement piece of yoga, you can practice on the other layers where you're practicing going inward and checking in with yourself. Meditation would be the final form of that, but they would say sort of the steps towards meditation are withdrawing the senses. I call that turning off your Wi-Fi. So instead of your Wi-Fi gathering data from all over the outside world, seeing, hearing, tasting, smelling, touching, everything that's coming in, your motherboard of your senses having to decode everything. Just give your senses time off. Turn off your Wi-Fi and let yourself go inward. So it's withdrawal of the senses from the outside world and turning your awareness inward. And then that next step is single pointed focus. Just let your focus be right here, right now. All your intention here. Super hard to do in our culture. We've been taught, we're amazing multitaskers. And all of a sudden there's this new way of being that's asking us to be here, just here, all of us, all 100% of you, just paying attention right here. And those would be our steps towards meditation, and meditation for me isn't sort of silencing the thoughts, it's being really aware of all of what's going on inside of me, all those 5 layers. Some days it works out better than others. Some days my thoughts just try and boss every other layer around, and they don't want to. It's like when your teenager doesn't listen to you. My thoughts are sometimes like, no, I'm not interested in what any of the rest of you have to say. This is what I think. And my thoughts are very determined to lead the show. Those days meditation, this is why yoga kind of leads you up, because sometimes you got to move your body in order to get the thought, that sort of bossy thought. For me, it's about, some other people have told me it's their bossy emotions that tell them that can't be true. Yeah. So what Ayurveda offers us as a way to constantly be doing this check-in is to follow sort of our basic habits, to create a rhythm to our day, create a rhythm. So there's things that happen during your day that your body can consistently rely on. It can rely on the fact that you're going to make sure you get enough sleep. It can rely on the fact that you're going to nourish yourself appropriately. It can rely on the fact that you're not going to spend more energy every day than you are going to replenish. It can rely on the fact that when, it gives you a little spidey senses, your intuition tells you something, that you'll pause and you'll check in with yourself before you answer, before you move toward or move away from something, that you'll do a check-in. And when your body develops this trust, where it trusts you to check in with it all the time, health starts to happen. So Ayurveda's 10 base habits are all around that daily rhythm. And I find that the habits themselves are easy, but what happens is that in relationship to our lives and the way we've built the current rhythm of our lives, it's like if it's going like this right now and we want to try and make it go like this instead, there's going to be some tweaks and changes that need to happen. And often the reason the habits are hard is because we're trying to make changes in relationship to an existing pattern. And we can't sort of, most of us can't anyway, be like, all right, selling my house, moving to Costa Rica and start a whole new fresh pattern. We want to be able to change the pattern and live in it at the same time. And so that's what the year view does. That's what Ayurveda teaches us, is to slowly, gently, with small compassionate steps, change the pattern so that we are inclusive of all 5 layers of our body. And we are starting to learn where those seeds, those kernels of dis-ease are, that are rising up through the layers to our physical level, to our breath level, to our thoughts, to our emotions, to our intuition. And when we can go in and acknowledge different layers, like, oh, this one's a pattern, this one's a core belief, this one, is something to do with my relationship with my mom. Like sometimes these are the ways that we like dis-ease is being created in us. And sometimes the fastest way back to health is to start to acknowledge all these deeper layers. So if you have questions, type them in the chat. What I want to tell you is that what I want to invite you to is have a meet and greet session with me. That's kind of step one, where we just talk about what's going on with you. What did you find in this? What's happening for you? Step two would be to book almost like a dosha discovery. I make you fill out about 10 pages of questions and find out for you what's going on. If we can start to suss out what layer the discontent, the dis-ease is happening at, and we can start to address that, it's really helpful. And then it starts to be up to you. Do you want to dive into sort of a whole year-long exploration of just a path to wellness in community and with support? Or do you want to just do one-on-one sessions? And at Synergy on Tuesdays, I offer private sessions where we just deal with this. Sometimes we do movement. Sometimes we do breath. Sometimes we're doing a mental emotional layer. Sometimes we're doing an intuitive layer. I don't know until we start our session. And we just build. We build your tool set. We build your toolbox. We build your ability to respond and listen to the 5 layers of your being. 2 p.m. That's our hour, everyone. Thanks so much for being here with me. And I invite you to reach out if there was anything in there that resonated or that you want future support with. The first half-hour chat is totally complimentary. So you can take advantage of that on my website. There's a spot to just book in. But yeah, thanks for being here.